Hello, thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about PC gaming versus console gaming. Now, I think that right there kind of is a non-argument in a way, because there's PC gaming, there's console gaming, and there's no versus. You can just play one or the other or both, and that's it. So and end of story. But with the new consoles coming out, and I think maybe people are just trolling, but I've noticed a lot of people talking smack about PCs versus consoles, and how PCs are the future and they're going to rule everything, and et cetera, et cetera. And I find it kind of annoying. But I decided, what? Let me just pretend these people are right. What does that make me? How does that change my perspective? And surprisingly, I was actually able to kind of play devil's advocate with this a little bit, and recognize that some of my notions of PC gaming are actually kind of dated. I do PC game now. I mean, I play games on Steam, and have an up-to-date graphics card, and just this weekend Final Fantasy XIV open beta is happening, so I've been playing A Realm Reborn on my PC. So I know what modern PC gaming is like, but I think some of my base assumptions about gaming in general are based on some more initial experiences with this, and I'm realizing that people, especially that are younger than I am, I mean, I'm in my mid-30s, and people in their 20s and their teens, some of them may have never had an IRQ conflict. They may have never not had their game work with their sound card. These were real problems back in the day, and configuring your game to work on your PC was occasionally just a huge pain in the ass. Even now, occasionally I'll have to update my graphics driver or something like that, but I think that it's actually a much easier, much more streamlined experience than it ever used to be. So I can see from a person's perspective who maybe has only ever gamed on Steam, would have a pretty different perspective on these things than myself. Console gaming, interestingly enough, is starting to look a little bit more like PC gaming. This is one of the reasons why we just had this whole fiasco with Microsoft and the Xbox One trying to bring the potential into the console market for loosening that relationship between your media and your game. With PCs, that has always been decoupled. It's meant that the physical media actually has no value. That is very little value. It has value, I guess, in the initial purchase when you buy it at the store, but it has had no resale value because nobody would take it back. Because you could have then installed that game onto multiple machines, and once it's on your computer, you play it on that. In the console, you actually play it on the media, except now you are installing it. So for the first time ever in this last generation, you actually put a disc in, and then you have to wait 20 minutes for it to install. So that's a weird perspective for me, because I've always just kind of stuck with my opinion that console gaming is way easier than PC gaming. That field is a little more level now. I will admit that. In addition to that, so the other thing you hear, and I hate this, is that the graphics can't be as good. They can't be as good because the hardware is so dated. Now, I'll never accept this, and the reason why I will not accept it is because a PC is a general thing. It's a general computer for a variety of computing tasks. It is not made specifically to video game. A console is. A console is just a gaming machine. Now, I'm gonna contradict myself momentarily, but that's kind of always been the benefits. So, from that perspective, I will not accept that a PC is with the same hardware and a console with that exact same hardware, that you are not going to be able to get more performance out of the console with that same hardware. Especially, and I'm not talking about me getting performance out of it, I mean developers. Developers, when developing for PC, they have to develop something that is going to work on the widest range of variable hardware as possible. With a game console, the hardware is a known quantity. You know what that is, and it's not going to change. And that means you can focus and you can get really specific on getting the most out of that particular bit of hardware. Now, that said, we do actually see consoles doing more now. That amazing cell processor on the PlayStation 3, I seem to remember several of those cells are dedicated specifically to doing things that do not have to do with gaming. We're talking about playing high definition video, and it's got to manage an internet connection, and now we're getting all social features and all this stuff. There's actually a lot more overhead on console gaming than there ever used to be. So this perspective on mine, again, it's possible that it's becoming a bit dated. So you have these people that are getting the best PC hardware. Maybe you're putting in like 2 graphics cards that each cost $400 or something ridiculous like that. I don't know, you spend $1,000 making your PC super PC gaming cool. That's fine. That's your prerogative. If I had all the money in the world, I would do that exact same thing. So go for it. And I guess if you want to defend that as being a better experience than buying a cheap console and console gaming, in a way, you might be right. So I think one thing that may have distorted this perception a little bit recently is that back a while ago, it was kind of understood that PC games were developed to the widest installed base of hardware for PCs, and that was always hardware that was maybe 2 or 3 years old. So you just kind of knew that you weren't getting the best experience that you could with your hardware, because they just couldn't develop games that take full advantage of that until several years later, because that's just the economics of it. I think that the perception on this has changed maybe a little bit when PC games stopped being the measure by which games were developed. And there was a shift a few years ago where I think a lot of developers started developing for the consoles first and then porting to PCs. So I think an impression has been developed that consoles are like holding PC games back somehow. And I don't think that's the case. When you take the consoles out of the picture, PC games hold PC games back. That's just the nature of how it works. But the other side of this is that I did go over to my friend's house at one point when we were both playing Guild Wars 2. And I played Guild Wars 2 on his machine. Now, he and I got a graphics card around the same time. I got ATI, he got NVIDIA. And he spent just a little bit more on his card. Just playing it on his machine, I was like, this looks better. It just looks better. And I was kind of impressed. Now, we were both playing the same game, and it was the same game that was developed for the same lower base of hardware, so that a lot of people can play it. But it really did look better on his machine. So those people that are crying and screaming and whining, as far as I'm concerned, that you're not getting the best experience on a console, I do have to admit, to a certain point, they're right. I think pushing those sliders all the way up to the top is not getting a better gaming experience that you could get if the developers actually were developing for this way better, standard of hardware. But if it does look better, then there is a quantifiable advantage to that. So I guess if you say, well, the game looks better on your PC than it does on the console, it does. I have to admit that. So I guess what it comes down to is, is PC gaming the future? Is it better than console gaming? When I've stepped back and taken that perspective of the PC gamer defender, I'm actually finding that they I think they have a leg to stand on. I don't think for me that that's ever going to sway me from playing games on consoles as well as PCs. But it's been an interesting exercise for me to try to look at things from that perspective and think about how things might be different for gamers who are gaming now, who maybe never gamed back in the 90s or earlier when things were really different. So I'm curious to know, what do you think? Is PC gaming better? Is console gaming better? I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this topic. So just wanted to share that with you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope that you'll join me again next time for some more video gaming related videos. Thanks for watching.